Nonprofit organization called More Than Wheels. It helps people better their credit, and when they're finished, they have to take a financial literacy course. And when it's finished, they co-sign for a loan. So I just bought a Mazda 6 in July, almost a year. I moved out of my parents' house into an apartment in Somersworth. I'm going to school for psychology to become a guidance counselor in high school, and I'm not with Sean anymore.
It's okay to clap.
Anything else? I just got tattoo 7, so keeping up there.
We've been busy.
We've been gone almost every week for the past 2 months. Went to Michigan, we went to Minnesota, he went to Texas, I went to New York, we went to New York, and now we're back in New York, and I have Delaware after this, and then Tampa after that, so it's going good.
Yeah, it's been fun. I think we have 2 people with microphones, right? I believe. Somebody? If not, we have to yell, but I'd rather use the mics because it's a lot more accessible. We have 2 wireless mics. So I could talk about the film, but we'd much rather hear what you guys have to think. Just to kind of reframe or reiterate something, what you saw in the film is capturing positive approaches to discipline. And there's so many kids that are being driven out of, there's about 1.5 million kids each year that drop out of school. So what our hope is for the film is that it shows what positive behavioral supports and these approaches look like on the ground in real schools. So those of you who are future educators, this is an approach that you sometimes may need to get going from the ground up. Or those of you who are administrators, even better. You can make this happen from the top down. But it really scares me to think that so many kids are getting sent right into the juvenile justice system for pretty minor things. There was just a New York Times story the other day showing that the increase of school resource officers, while some may think on the surface that's a good thing, it's actually creating a situation where a lot of disciplinary issues that would be handled in the school are actually escalating quickly and becoming juvenile justice issues. So kids that might have just had some type of in-school suspension or something are being sent into the correctional system or into the court system. So there's a lot to talk about. I think in light of the whole Newtown shooting as well, I think it's so critical that we have early screening and identify kids with significant mental health issues early and get them those supports so that they don't go untreated and escalate to the point where we have kids who do some really self-destructive or destructive things. So, break the ice. Who wants to ask the first question? We'd much rather hear from you than keep blabbing about what we think you want to hear. Thank you.
Your story was very moving. I can kind of relate in a sense. I had pretty much the same experience in high school. I loved how you would say to people, like, shut the fuck up. Like, leave me alone. Like, how important, and I guess I have kind of a double-sided question. How important do you think it is to actually do things like that, to stand up for yourself? And how did you go about doing this? I can't imagine someone having documented what I went through. Like, it's very commendable that you did this. And how did you do that? Like, what do you have to say about those things? I mean, or if anything at all.
I have always been really stand up for myself. I'm usually the person that people bring in when they need someone to stand up for them also. So I don't know, I'm really good at it. I tell Dan all the time to shut up.
It's true.
He knows that I'm
good.
mad at him because when I spell his name, I'll put 2 N's after the N, so he knows he needs to shut up.
Better than hitting me.
I haven't gotten there yet.
Yep.
Sometimes very close.
Yep.
But I don't know, it's just...
I guess my direct question would more be, how do you do that? Do you have any advice for doing that? For just standing up and being like, this is who I am, this is how it should be?
If you know that someone's pushing you around, just be like, seriously, like, shut up. And I don't know how to give pointers on how to do that. I'm trying to teach our assistant to be a bitch. She's taking lessons from Kelsey. But I don't know, I guess it's just something that I had to acquire. I don't know how to explain how to do it.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you.
One thing I've seen over the time I've known Kelsey is that it used to be that she would shut down or just get really angry, but you have been, for me anyway, much better at explaining what's going on, why you're upset, what's happening, and just your communication has become amazing.
My communication towards people that I'm actually comfortable with, like you, Karin, Miss Riker, that's really easy, but I'm seeing somebody named Jake. He's actually driving down on Wednesday because he went to RIT. So we're going to stay in Rochester, and he's going to show me RIT. So, him and I have a lot of problems about communication because he'll want to push and push and push when I shut down, and I don't talk to him, and I don't know, I push him away a lot simply because he annoys the fuck out of me. But I don't know. If I'm comfortable with you, I'll talk to you. If not, then whatever. But the whole filming thing with Dan, I don't know, wasn't that bad. I mean, he hit a lot, and I didn't see him. I would pick on him a lot, and I'd mess with people. He'd be in the background, but I don't know. Was that your second question? Yeah.
kind of babble on.
But it wasn't that bad. Sometimes it was really tedious. Like even now, he likes to take pictures of everything. He's like, let's take pictures with the windmill. I'm like, no. Like the little pinwheels outside. I'm like, really? But, his picture taking gets real annoying.
Yeah.
I just let it go because, hey, it's Dan. If I was like, hey, let's go have a beer every time I wanted to do something, he'd like, really? But he'd let it go because it's Kelsey, so.
There's another hand over there. Let me just say that from the beginning, how many of you are journalists in the room or have journalism experience? I know this in the Newhouse school. There's a lot of ethical issues around letting your subjects have say over what you create or how you edit it. And I said from the very beginning, Kelsey, you are a collaborator in this project. And anytime you want me to put my camera down or stop taking pictures or stop filming, I will do that. There were times where she actually made editing suggestions because we looked at the rough cuts together all the way through, which a lot of filmmakers would never do with their subject, but I just felt like I owed it to her and I wanted the film to be something she was proud of. So there were a lot that she obviously did not ask me to take out, but a lot sort of things that we took out. So from the beginning it was a really collaborative process. Yeah.
I wondered if your parents have seen this film and what their reactions were.
They have. They were the first people to see the finished movie. It was kind of nerve-wracking simply because of the content of the film, but it went really well, surprisingly. My dad had one say. Dan can talk more about that because he tells it better than I do. But sorry, I just mysteriously got a random cough and I don't like it. I already drank water. I'm kicking mine, and it's a jerk.
She's a little harsh today.
It's been a long day. It was my mom, Jonathan, Miss Franker. You weren't there. It was me and Sean. I tried to stay out of reach where they could throw anything at me or hit me until they started crying, and then I decided to sit next to them. But went really well. They were only upset with what my dad said because he lies a lot, and they know the truth. So other than that, he can tell you about my dad.
Well, your dad, we really felt it was important to get this right to their parents right away. And her dad, we walk in, and it's her dad, stepmom, Tracy, me, Ms. Franco, Jonathan, you, and Chris, Tracy's guy. And and her dad says, oh, well, I've already seen it. It's like, what? How have you already seen it? He said, I just Googled Who Cares About Kelsey, and it popped right up. I was like, oh, crap. Well, I put my cuts on Vimeo. My editors are in New York City. I'm in New Hampshire. So we share cuts via Vimeo, and I had forgotten to password protect it once. So he called it up and watched it, and he said, yeah, it's okay, but there's this one piece in there that's really way off base. So I'm like, oh gosh, it's about sexual abuse, it's about something. He said, we moved to Georgia. I was already in the military. I didn't move to join the military. So I was like, all right, we can change that. No problem. We'll work with that. So that was about it. And her mom now, in terms of like Facebook, she's been great. She's really engaged.
She likes everything that gets posted on the Who Cares About Kelsey Facebook page. She's the first person to like it, and she hasn't grasped the concept of sharing a photo yet, so she tags herself in it. So there's just like a random picture or something, and she's in there somewhere because she's tagged in it. But other than that,
yeah, and we do, just a little plug, we always update everything that's going on with the film on the Who Cares About Kelsey Facebook page when it's on TV, where we're going, and we talk to people and communicate that way, so please like it, join it, whatever you want to do. All right, we got 2 hands in the back, another hand right there. Great, I think we have 2 mics, right? So let's get back there, thanks.
Has your relationship with your parents changed at all?
my dad and I bond a lot. We go shooting. For my birthday, which was in October, Dan, Karn, and Miss Franker and all them got me tickets to see the Blue Man Group. And his birthday was in March. So on March 15th, on his birthday, I had Dan get the tickets, and then him and I went to Boston for the Blue Man Group thing, and we spent the night in Boston and like had fun. We talk about going shooting a lot, but I've been kind of busy lately. And since I don't live there, it's a little awkward to like, hey, what's coming over? But when I need someone to vent to, I like call him like, do you have a minute? He's like, yeah, and then I'll just explode, and then he'll be like, okay, talk to you later. I'm like, okay. My mom and I, we don't talk that much. I've talked to her like 4 times today.
Is that a lot or a little?
That's a lot. Well, she's at the bar, so who do we call? Kelsey. We talk. The only time we hang out is if we go to the bar or something. So that's about it. Not really good bonding time, but I'll take what I can get with her. But yeah, it's changed a little bit. We bond a lot and talk a lot more. So.
First, Kelsey, I'm from Rochester, so don't get too excited about your visit there.
This is a little Syracuse, Rochester, Rochester.
This is a question for both of you, actually. I'm coming from the law school, where I'm in a legislation and policy class that focuses on the IDEA. And I was wondering, you mentioned that changes in schools need to start with educators and administration, but do you think there is a role for legislators to sort of get into the schools to make the situation more accommodating for children with behavioral and emotional issues?
So like at the federal level?
Yes.
I think that, yeah, that means I get to talk. Well, I think there are a couple, yeah, I mean, the answer is yes and no. I mean, so much has to happen at the local level. But I do think the federal government has a particular role when it comes to certain key areas. One is incentivizing positive behavioral supports over other approaches. So you know about No Child Left Behind. They're now in the process of reauthorizing that. It's going to take a while. And they're calling it ESEA. Now they're trying hard to write positive behavioral supports, universal design for learning, response to intervention, really good practices, differentiated instruction into the way that schools are assessed. And also to look at the way that schools assess the social and emotional success of kids, not just the academic success. So if that's written into the way that schools are measured in terms of whether they're quote unquote failing schools or not, that's a huge impact. And I'll ask you guys a quick question that I think will be illustrative. When you think about who you are today as a person, when you think about your hobbies, your interests, your passions, everything, your relationships, and you think about back to K through 12 school, what had a bigger impact on you? Was it the social and emotional experience of school or the academic experience of school? And I know it sounds like a loaded question, but I really want to know honestly. So which had a bigger impact on you? Let's start the academic experience of school. Was that a bigger, anybody? Maybe? There, we got 1, 2, great, okay. How about the social and emotional experience of school? So I ask this question a lot to audiences, and I get the same result. 95% say social and emotional, but we don't measure schools on their success in that way. We just measure the academics. So that's a piece. I also think there's a lot happening right now around restraint and seclusion at the federal level. They're trying hard, and I'm actually making a new short film right now specifically on restraint and seclusion. So the idea would be to ban seclusion rooms. This is kind of at the federal level, and to, yeah, that would be great. And I work very closely with Tash and Appraise, this coalition of people that are on this issue. And the other would be to prevent you from ever putting restraint into a kid's IEP as part of their response. Yeah, good. It's the first crowd that's ever clapped to that. I like this. So I think if you take away those opportunities, it's like if you don't build it, they won't come. If you don't have special ed rooms, you can't just use the special ed rooms. If you don't have seclusion rooms, you can't just toss kids in there. So I think those type of approaches could really make a difference. But honestly, a lot of this happens at the local level, and it has to be parents, students, teachers, administrators who understand that there are approaches that actually have an evidence base that work and not these random approaches that people just think might work, like zero tolerance.
Okay, Kelsey, at the beginning of the movie, you said, I have a crappy life and a little bit of caring goes a long way. And then at the end, you said they cared too much. And so I want to know from your opinion, for those of us that are becoming educators, how would you suggest to be that caring support for the kid that pushes you away when you try to give it?
Well, they're pushing you away for a reason, and you need to pinpoint that reason and push right back. If we're pushing you away, it's because we really need you. We want you to ask us, how's your day going, and actually care about the answer. Because we can tell when you don't really care about the answer. And if we push you and push you and push you and you turn around and walk away, then that's it for you. Like, you're not getting back into our head nor into our relationship anymore. I had a train of thought and I lost it. Yeah, so just keep pushing because you're going to eventually break down that barrier. I mean, you can only hit a cement wall so many times before it breaks. And yeah, I lost it.
That's all right. Well, what about the idea of never giving up?
Oh, wait, no, keep going.
Never giving up on kids.
Okay.
Talk about this.
Yeah, obviously he said it, never giving up on
Sorry.
it. Thank you. Never giving up on kids. Again, you give up and that's it for you. Or you don't do what you say you're gonna do and you blow it off, that's it for you. And we're pushing you because we're looking for a reaction from you. Whether, obviously not a negative one, but definitely a positive one. Just being like a little bit of pushing back is good, but we're pushing you because we need you. And if you turn around and walk away, then we're gonna hold that door open for you and close it and lock it right after.
One of the things I've learned a lot from Kelsey and from doing this project is, and I've always kind of believed this, but I've really seen it with Kelsey, behavior is a form of communication. I mean, and that's something that seems maybe so obvious to people, but people in education often do not get that. They think it's about them. That student's pissed off, it must be about me, or they're mad at me, or we're having a conflict. It's not about you. You know, and you said earlier something about shut the F up. If you've noticed in the film, even though I could put it in the film, I have trouble saying it sometimes. You know, Kelsey never says F you to somebody. It's always fucking this, fucking this, fucking this, but it's not directed at anyone. And I think some teachers miss that. I mean, you're cursing just because you're angry, but it's not about targeting it at somebody else. So, you know, and if you look at the film, there's one scene in the film where Mrs. Nato, the study hall teacher, calls Kelsey out about the iPod right in the middle of class, all right? Now, Ms. Nato's a good person, and sometimes you have to, but I think she's flawed in her teaching methodology. Sometimes you put things in films to show what not to do, and that's kind of the journalistic approach. Ms. Nato is calling Kelsey out, a kid that she knows is volatile, in front of all her peers, and basically creating this mano-a-mano conflict. What's going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? Kelsey is going to, of course, escalate, get tossed out of the class, kept her pride intact, kept her feeling, you know, okay about herself, but now she's in the office. And then thankfully, the administrator in the office, just like Mrs. Lampros, the principal, deals with things quietly, quickly, and privately. And that's the mantra at the school. We deal with conflict quietly, quickly, and privately. She doesn't get emotional, she doesn't, you know, the administrator doesn't get riled up. It's just, okay, how can we work this out? How can we get you to graduate and you can still get your iPod? That is something that Ms. Nato unfortunately hasn't grasped. And so Ms. Nato is probably the only one at the school who doesn't really like the film. But sorry. Great. Go ahead. Someone behind you there.
Hi. I work in the juvenile justice system, and I work with adolescents that have no idea what ADHD or ADD even means, and they're so used to just self-medicating themselves all the time. I'm just wondering what type of coping mechanisms or therapeutic models that you would encourage people to use since you took yourself off.
I listen to a lot of what I call angry white girl music. It can be anything from country to like heavy screamo. Depends on the mood I'm in. I always have my music going. Dan and I actually, we drive down here and he has his headphones in and I have mine in. Because it's like pulling teeth to get you to listen to my music. You just don't like it. I don't know. I have a lot of tattoos for a reason. Since the movie came out, I've gotten 2.
What about dietary stuff?
I stay away from a lot of sugar, although earlier I didn't, and now I'm crashing. If anyone was here from that class I was just in. I was like high on life. I had a chai tea and 2 Cokes before I went there, so I was like going, and now I'm like, But I stay away from a lot of sugar. I actually find that at night, caffeine and sugar is different, like it's reverse effect almost, because I can chug a Red Bull or a Mountain Dew and just fall asleep. It's like when I wake up, I'll have a drink there and I'll drink it. It's usually like something high in caffeine or high in soda, and I can just fall right back to sleep. So, let's see, what else do I do?
What about the whole issue of medicine in the film and the idea of stopping versus staying on meds?
I don't advocate for people to stop taking their medication. In my case, it was the best choice for me. I was 19 and severely underweight, and a week away from being fed through tubes. And I didn't think that was the ideal way to go. So I quit taking it. I don't advocate for people to stop taking it. I just say that if it's not working for you, then maybe you need to reach out to somebody in a higher power, like your parents or a teacher or your doctor, and find an alternate route. That's all I really say about that, because I'm not going to be like, oh, medicine sucks, don't take it. Because I know in some cases it does help people. In my case, it didn't. Probably because I was severely over-medicated. I was on the maximum dose of Adderall plus 15 to 20 extra milligrams. With somebody my weight and my height is not ideal. I wouldn't sleep for months at a time, and I wouldn't eat for months at a time, and that's not an exaggeration. I was never hungry. I was never tired. And I think it boosted my thinking a little bit way too much, so that I was overthinking about everything, and I just kept going. So yeah.
One thing you notice in the film is that through the Renew process, when Kelsey says she quits her meds, they didn't say, how can we get Kelsey to get back on her meds or keep taking her meds? It was, okay, she made this decision. It's a rational decision based on her health and her happiness. She's 19 years old. How are we going to change the way we're supporting her? How are we going to let her teachers know? How are we going to make this work for her? And that's part of the whole idea of Renew, is the self-determination. It's a really big part of the Renew process. So it's self-determination, and also, you know, the youth-directed planning. I mean, Kelsey was at the center of that process all the way through. And so when she makes these decisions, it's not about how do we redirect her, it's about how do we keep supporting her towards her goal. Yep, there's a hand over here, and there's a hand somewhere. Raise your hand, I can't see it.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Oh yeah, right here, go ahead.
Sorry. Hi. I noticed in the movie that there was a lot of interaction between you and like.
Up and down or something.
Right.
Okay.
Hi.
Like, I don't know where you are.
There was a lot of interaction between you and like adults, or like people who wanted to help you like from the adult administrative point of view. But I didn't notice a ton of like peer-to-peer interaction between you and maybe somebody else who might be in your position. Like, do you think that had more to do with like your being kind of like a post-senior age, or was there not a lot of like, I don't know, peer group support for the kind of process that you were in?
I'm sure there could have been, but I was significantly older than a lot of people, and I just felt stupid, and I didn't want to feel that way, so I only sought out adult help. It was what I was comfortable with. I did get help from that one girl who happens to be Miss Franker's daughter, so it wasn't like I was going up to a stranger being like, I need you to help me. I already knew her. So, yeah, I'm sure it could have been an option, but I just didn't want it.
Yeah. I guess I just have a question about the Renew process, though, because at the end, then when you were helping those kids like get to know their own process and make their own maps and stuff, like is the Renew process meant to be kind of like a peer-driven, like social activity, or is it mainly like one-on-one?
You want to talk about that? So the Renew model, which was founded actually at the Institute on Disability where I work by Joanne Malloy and her team, it's kind of a separate team, because it's person-centered planning, it's not one size fits all. So in Kelsey's case, usually they really want family involvement. Kelsey was like, no, I want to do this without my dad. He's just going to be a downer. My mom's kind of checked out and an hour away. They will bring in other teachers as needed. They would bring in anybody onto that team that the young person wants. So if a peer model is really what they feel comfortable with, that's what they would do. But it's really mainly about who's the team that you want in your life to help you get your goals. So Renew is in about 17 high schools in New Hampshire. They're starting to do it in middle schools, and they're starting to do national work now. And they don't go all over the country and work directly with the kids. They train and build the capacity within the school. So they may go to a school like Somersworth now has 34 or 35 trained Renew facilitators on staff. And that's a high school with like 600 kids. So not a huge staff. And some of the best facilitators are paraprofessionals and school resource officers. They're not always special ed or guidance counselors. I did see a really amazing thing happen at the school around the peer education model. They have a chain reaction club that they started as part of their PBIS. And the chain reaction club said, listen, this is all about connections and relationships between students and staff. And that's what you saw happen with Kelsey. And they said, but there are some kids that don't have those connections. So they took a chart, and they made a chart of every single kid in the school. They put it on the wall of the teacher's lounge in a fairly private area. They asked the teachers to check off who they felt they had a connection to, which kids. And some kids, like Miranda, who Kelsey just mentioned, had 9 or 10 checks, lots of connections. And there were some kids that had 0 or 1. So they collected that data, and then they asked the teachers to reach out to the kids that had none or 1 check and really develop connections and relationships with them. And they did. So it was just a really wonderful example of like a peer-led intervention. It wasn't exactly peer-to-peer counseling, but it was a peer-led thing that created all these connections. So there's a hand over here. I don't know if you have a mic or not, but we'll get it to you. It's coming. Is there another mic up top? Okay.
This may be just a result of the filming, but a lot of your classes that they showed you in looked like they had a very small number of students in them. So was that the case, or were you in, how many kids were in classes? Was there any kind of a special program, or were you, in classes with 25, 30 kids?
The only class that really is in the film is Miss NATO, which was obviously...
Mr. McNally a little bit.
Yeah, those were... Miss NATO was a class of everything. You could be taking any subject in that class. It was an alt education class. And Mr. McNally, his class was a accelerated math class for people like me that tried taking integrated math 4 times and it just did not work out. So that class was the math classes broken down into 1 semester. So all you had to do was pass the competencies. Because obviously there was a problem in which we've taken it multiple times and just flunked out of it or didn't go to it. And all the other classes had like 20 kids in it, maybe.
Maybe just the way it was filmed. I mean, she was in general ed classes except for that one study hall, which I think was a bad model. I mean, I just don't think it was a good model. But some of the classes were, I think, creatively engineered in a way for kids who needed some extra help, attention or whatever.
I just wondered if she was within a special education model at all, or outside of that. Was there IEP, 504, or anything?
I had 504, but the only thing that was different was I was in general ed classes, but my tests were a little bit different. They took out a multiple choice, or they took out 2 multiple choice and gave me a 50-50 answer, or something along those lines. The only things that were really different were my tests. And I had the option of taking my tests somewhere else rather than in the classroom. But other than that, it didn't affect anything else.
And when she started Renu, often you get handed this folder, right? Your IEP or your 504, and you say, this is the kid. And they never did that with Renu. It was all about you tell us your own story in your own way, in your own time. Reveal yourself to us the way you want to reveal yourself to us. They didn't even read the paperwork to start. So have a couple more hands and have a couple more minutes. Yep, we have a couple more minutes. So we have like maybe 2 more questions up top. We have another mic up there, I think.
Yeah, she has it right there.
You said in the film, I don't want to say I have a disability, I have a mental disability. I was curious, has your opinion about disability changed at all since your tour?
I don't really feel I have a disability anymore. I just feel like I'm a little bit more hyper than everybody else. Maybe because of my sugar intake, but other than that, I don't really feel I have one. I've learned to manage it pretty well. I just have a lot of different things going on in my head at different times. So yeah, that's the only part that's really changed. And
What about your view of disability in general, just getting to know people?
well, I'm a lot more aware, and I'm trying to learn certain. I'm still trying to learn the certain ways of talking to people with a disability. I'm becoming more aware of how I speak to them, and I know that I have a lot of working to do, but. It's good practice when I go to Dan's house, like I was there yesterday because I drove to his house from my house and then we drove here. And Sam, I have to plan out the way I talk to him because I have a habit of like listening like this, and I think that's rude to not look at him while I'm like trying to listen to him, so I have to like constantly remind myself to keep looking at him. And the way I talk to him, I still have a problem of talking to him like he's in diapers. I'm like, oh, okay, but I can't do that anymore because he's 13, he's stronger than I am, so I'm like, I have to think, I'm more aware of how I talk to them and how I act around them, not them, but hopefully you know what I mean, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. But I don't know, that's the only thing really that's changed.
We talked about this earlier, though. I really appreciate Kelsey's honesty. I mean, the stigma against disability is so intrinsic in our society. And I have a child with a disability. I work at the Institute on Disability. I make films about disability. And I still have to remind myself every day to, you know, have high expectations for every person and to never, you know, to find the best way that they want to communicate with me and that I can communicate back with them. And that takes work and it takes thought. It's a conscious effort, you know, and I think anybody that, you know, isn't honest, just says, oh yeah, I automatically have high expectations for everybody. I don't think that's necessarily going to be really true. You know, I think a lot of people should be more conscious about it and be honest about the fact that this is a prejudice that's very ingrained in our society. Yeah. There's one more hand, and then we should probably wrap up. Yeah.
Hi. One, I think the documentary was awesome. You're awesome. Now that you're in college, how has your approach to school and academics changed, and from high school, obviously? And when you need help, what do you do?
I'm more aware of deadlines now because it's a little bit more. It's a lot of it more independent than high school was. But the Renu process gave me tools and tricks and stuff that I use, like deadlines, meeting them, being more independent, being like never doubting myself and stuff like that. But what the hell? Not doubting myself, but the school that I go to is very accommodating to people with ADHD and stuff. There's tutors, there's advisors. I've only taken 2 classes because I go at night. The teachers made their personal email available, their cell phone numbers available, and their their teacher email available. And they're willing to stay whenever I need or willing to come in whenever I need, which is good. And the advisors, they check in with you halfway through the term. It's accelerated, so it's only an 8-week class. But I've taken 2 so far, and I passed my finals. It wasn't as easy as I was hoping to be, but it wasn't that difficult either. But of course, everything with Sean, I didn't have the right mentality anymore, and my grades are suffering. So I took a little bit of time off, not only for that, but to do stuff like this, because it'd be Tuesday and Thursday nights. I'd be gone from 5 until 10:40. So it was a little bit time consuming. So I recently took a term off to get recentered, and then I'm going back. Yeah.
And part of this is, you know, Kelsey's living in real time. This is not a fairy tale. She's still, I mean, you've got a court date for Sean's restraining order.
Court date is May 8th.
So, yeah, I don't think we got into detail about that, but Sean
Sean's not in the picture anymore because he's addicted to pills and he does heroin, and it got very violent. He attacked me twice and dragged me out of my car and beat me in the street. So I got a restraining order on him. I blocked his cell phone and his house phone. Although he's still finding ways to contact me. I had to delete my Skype because that's when he started blowing up my Skype. And then calls from his mom's cell phone, his work phone, his friends' phones, and it's starting to get tedious to call Verizon every time he calls me and be like, I need you to block this number. So I just try to, I know it's him, I'll just hang up and turn my phone off for a half hour, and then eventually he'll stop. So yeah, that's the whole shebang with that one.
So I think you get the sense of why I just have so much respect for Kelsey, her strength, her, you know, what she's been through. She's been through a lot more and overcome a lot more than I ever will in a lifetime, I think. And I just am so thankful I've gotten to know you and you agreed to be part of this film. So thank you. Thanks, everybody. And finally, just thank the School of Education for hosting this and everybody who put this together. It's really been amazing to be here today. So thanks, everybody.
Can I take this off here?